Tell me about your background as a writer.
I began writing for magazines in the late 1970s. I was working full-time as a teacher, but I wrote part-time, and I sold to Real West, True West. Somewhere on 1989, I wrote my first book, The American West, From Fiction into Film, which has been called the definitive monograph on the subject. Of course, it's the only monograph on the subject, so therefore it is the definitive monograph on the subject. Somewhere about 1991, I wrote Words and Shadows, which is about mainstream American literature that was adapted for film. It has 300 photographs in it, so if you don't like what I'm saying, at least you got the photographs to look at. In about 1999, I had a novel published called The Last Warrior. However, my most success was with a novel I had published in 2010 called Carney, a novel in stories, which won several awards, including the Next Generation Indie Book Award, the grand prize for that award. And of course, this year, 2016, Open Books has just released The Courage of Others.
Your newest novel, The Courage of Others, takes place in north central Texas in 1919 to 1920. What initially drew you to this period, as well as the subject matter?
Well, I was born in Texas and raised there. I lived there until I was around about 22, 23, before I moved away. And I knew a lot of old-timers from that era, and I heard stories and so forth from them, and the area itself fascinated me, and I thought it was a good place for a story.
What specific books and authors influenced you in writing The Courage of Others?
I think two in particular. My Antonia by Willa Cather, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Now, I don't think my book qualifies in those categories, but those are the ones that influenced me for this particular book.
Whatever viewpoint you use, your book is very visual, almost like a movie. Why is that?
I think it has to do with movies. I've been a movie fan all my life. My first two books were about films, and I think I see things visually. And I've always loved books, especially that are very visual in their qualities. And I think that's why my book is that way.
Your previous novel, Carney, a novel in stories, is quite different in tone and content from The Courage of Others. Do you see any thematic connection between the two?
They're both about families, ultimately, I think. And I think if there's a thematic connection, it's that. But also, there's a lot of prejudice in both the Carney stories and certainly in The Courage of Others. And so also, I think it's about this also. So I think there are these thematic connections that carry through.
You also in both books, they're like coming-of-age stories. Am I right about that?
Well, Carney is somewhat that way, much more so Courage of Others.
Do you have anything that you would like to add about The Courage of Others?
I think it's really the novel I intended to write. Sometimes I think when you're an artist, whether you're a musician or a painter or a writer, your finished product sometimes is not exactly what you anticipated. But I think this is exactly the book I intended to write, and I think it shows up on the page what I intended.
What advice do you have for a person writing his or her book?
First of all, read, and write, and rewrite, and rewrite. If there's any art in writing, it's not in the first draft, it's probably not in the second. Perhaps in the third or fourth or fifth draft that you're writing and rewriting, that's where art lies. And I cannot stress that too much. And of course, to be a good writer, I think you have to be a good reader.